Better Sex Podcast. My name is Deborah Catt, and I am your shameless host. This is the Better Sex Podcast, where we have unfiltered conversations about sex and relationships. These conversations are frank and explicit and may not be appropriate for all audiences, so please listen with care. I truly believe that a sexy world creates a happier and a safer world. If you want to do your part to create a safe and sexy world, please hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment wherever you get your podcasts. Today, we dive into the world of my guest, Pamela Madsen. She is a trailblazer in women's wellness, known for her transformational approach to self-discovery and pleasure, as well as intimate connection. She is one of a kind, and I'm freaking thrilled that you're.
I don't know, but she's hanging out in this bedroom, ready to talk about better sex with Deborah Catt. I'm sorry, I interrupted you raving about me.
Yes, and that is exactly what I love about you. I love that you are unfiltered, that you are a come as you are, in whatever way, shape, or form you are in, that you find the pleasure in the moment. And I'm just thrilled that you're here. And so thank you for being a guest, for joining me. And speaking of transition, I want to say congratulations. I know you are in the middle of a heck of a transition, a whole new lifestyle. And so thank you for being a guest with all of that going on.
My pleasure. How's it going? So for people who don't know, I've been running international and continental U.S. retreats now for like 15 years. And we haven't had a home base, and I live in Riverdale in the Bronx in New York until 2 months ago. And we're now sitting actually in a guest bedroom at the Back to the Body Institute. We now have an institute. We now have a home. We now have 8 acres of incredibly gorgeous, delicious property in Pioneer Town in Joshua Tree. And it was gorgeous when we bought the property, but we've been spending the past 2 months making it even more gorgeous for our first retreat, which would be here in September. So yeah, like I'm not in a proper studio. I'm hiding out in a guest bedroom right now. Feels very white at the moment. There's more color if I turn the camera. You won't be able to see. Sorry, there's too much backlighting, and now you're nauseous because I just moved you all around. But we're on this really beautiful property surrounded by boulders and rocks and hawks and quail, and it's gorgeous. And there's no Bloomingdale's or Nordstrom anywhere near me, so it's a whole and food doesn't get delivered to Pioneer Town. You have to actually go food shopping here.
How very exciting! And
It's a really big transition for me. I can't go, I'm in the mood for sushi for lunch. Let me just call Palace of Japan. And in 15 minutes, it's delivered to my door. So I'm learning about how to enjoy expanded arousal from my genitals to how I live my life. That it's not like instant 30 seconds. You have, the way we've been, the way our focus has been trained to live. I'm now living a different focus, which is what we teach in sexuality.
Right.
Is slow down, feel, notice what's around you. How does the environment affect your erotic experience? So I'm having that now, from my genitals through my heart, through how I live my life, is very, very different and very exciting.
I bet. I love the pictures you've been posting of you in the desert. And one of the questions that I had about that is, I'm imagining the way that the air feels on your skin, the air, the sand beneath your feet, if you will. And I'm
Um,
you could talk a little bit about the sensual experience of living in the desert and how that might be different than the sensual experience of living in the Bronx.
well, I think the biggest thing is privacy and nature and having access to the stars and comets and the moon at night. And, when I was living in Riverdale, I wouldn't think ever of doing a self pleasuring experience on my terrace.
Mm.
That wouldn't occur to me. Also, my neighbor's window is right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've been having these really, and I'm going to use these words sparingly because I think they're overused.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've had some extraordinarily sacred, beautiful, erotic experiences on the land with myself. And there was the big blue moon that was last week. And my husband went to bed early, and I'm sitting out on our back, which faces these gorgeous boulders, and the big moon was right there, shining down at me in all of its moonbow colors. And
Mm.
like, what if, instead of like opening up my phone, right? My favorite little like porn,
Mm-hmm.
favorite little app, and then taking out my power drill, which is what I call the magic wand. Um, Instead of like filling myself with images, either in front of my face, which is nothing wrong with that,
Mm-hmm.
um, or from my spank bank in my head. Like, what if I allowed the moon? What if I allowed the moon, open my legs to the moon bows and let the moon have me? And I had this very different erotic experience. Annie Sprinkle would call it an echo-sexual
Mm-hmm.
experience, like having an erotic experience with your environment. And I got to have that. And I would not have that well, at least I wouldn't have it where I lived, which was a beautiful place, in the city. But the land, the environment, the quiet, the privacy at night, the stars, the moon, it's very sexy. And if we open ourselves to the possibility, like it's sort of like allowing yourself, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, how can you use your erotic imagination?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So really what I did was I called in my erotic imagination to have a hopefully consensual experience with the moon. And it was beautiful. And the moon seemed happy and I was happy. And so that is some of the ways that bringing my eroticism, bringing my life um, to the high desert, has begun to shift how I experience my own erotic self-pleasuring practice. So now I keep my magic wand discreetly outside
Mm.
under a pile of blankets on one of the benches that we have out there. Like nobody would notice. But when he goes to bed, I could just, if I was in the mood. So maybe it wouldn't be the moon, but it might be the Big Dipper.
I love that. Or the foxes, or the cat. Well, the cactus could be really interesting.
Oh, but that could be fun in the right circumstances.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, speaking of the environment, and I know you've got your upcoming retreats are now going to be in on this land. How, if at all, do you think they're going to shift the way you think about the retreats and the work?
Well, a couple of things. We're still going to do a couple of international a year. So we're still going to go to Sicily in 25 and Thailand in 25. It's just not constant. Well, what the big difference about owning the land and owning the property, because I've been renting retreat centers for not decades, but like a decade and a half, is having control over the environment.
Mm.
So like being able to have beautiful bathrobes for the women, waiting for them on their bed, and face masks and, Lux shampoo and creams and soaps, and filling the drawers in the bathroom with anything they might need, like a razor, or, something to put under your eyes if you're feeling puffy, like having the ability to really craft all of the experience. As we're very good at the erotic curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
But being able to really craft every part of a woman's experience. So I'm responsible for the photos that are on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I'm creating the erotic temple. We've just finished a huge landscaping experience around the pool. I'm really being able to put myself in the vision of what this should be or could be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been really a beautiful use of erotic energy. And like putting my eroticism, like I'm even feeling my vulva right now getting warm, and I'm feeling arousal in my body. Because I'm talking about something that arouses me, which is the creation of this. And I think that's such an interesting thing, is that people see sex as one thing or the other. It's very narrow.
Mm-hmm.
So like sex is fucking, or sex is oral sex, or whatever it is, right? Some kind of touch experience, either with yourself or with another person. As you grow erotically, as you become more experienced and you really become an embodied creature, you start to notice that erotic energy flows through you all the time. I'm watching you right now, letting it flow, a little rocking going on. So we can use our erotic energy to bring to a lover. And we can also bring our erotic energy to the lasagna that we're cooking, or to landscaping the lands. Or, I used to work in fertility and infertility. I was very well known in that land. And I remember a woman, she lived on a goat farm. And she said, I just don't know that I would ever be a mother. And I said, well, what is being a mother? It's creation. And you've created this incredible goat farm, and you're making soaps and cheeses and milk, and you're loving these animals. And so, no, you're not mothering a baby, but you are in a maternal, giving, nurturing, creative mode. And the same thing goes for sexuality. It's like, how big is your landscape? So I have 8 acres of erotic energy out there that I'm filling up. And soon other women, and there will be some a couple retreat here, and there'll be men on the property. They're going to bring the masculine.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's going to be this beautiful combination of erotic energy on the property, which I think the property welcomes. It's a long response.
Thank you for that. And I really want to just bring, the attention of creativity and erotic energy. And, in the Tantra tradition, the second chakra is where sexuality is. Well, mm-hmm. Sexuality is our creativity, and our creativity, as you brought to talking about fertility and having children, like, well, yes, this is the potency of our erotic energy. We can create life from it, as well as this incredible space that, you're creating, whether it be the physical space, or I love you were talking about the details of, what's in the drawer in the restroom. Like that is, that kind of attention to detail allows that unfolding to happen. I also wanted to just go back for a second. You were talking about the big difference having control over the environment. And one of the things that I love about your work is that it really, from my point of view here, one of the things that it does so well is it supports women in having more sovereignty and more control over not just our own bodies, but the way that we interact with ourselves and
Absolutely.
the way that we interact with others. And so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, back to the body's work, specifically around pleasure and around the word that comes to mind is ownership, self-ownership. I don't know if that's...
How about the word sovereignty?
All right, we can go with sovereignty.
How's that?
All right. And just we'll start with, the word gets used a lot, but I'm wondering specifically the way you're using the word sovereignty. What does that mean?
Well, sovereignty is a word I think, perhaps one of the most important achievements a woman can have. And a man too, but I particularly work with women. So being sovereign is really understanding your own sexuality, having voice and choice, right? And then to have that, are you sovereign? Are you in control of where you live? Are you in control of your money? Are you in control of your health care? Are you in control of your food? Our sex is connected to all of it. You can't just isolate your sexuality. If you're not in control of your finances, it's hard to be in control of your orgasm. If you're not in control of where you live and how safe you feel in your living environment, if you're living in a place of hypervigilance, you're always having your antenna out, how can you relax into your sexuality? So all of these things, if you were to make a pie chart, if you were to do a web, you put sovereign sexuality and then you started to draw lines. I would start to say money, communication, safety. I would start to work around all of these things. And if you are able to say, yeah, I actually, doesn't mean that you're rich or poor, but you understand your money. You're in control of your money. You're in control of your living environment. You are safe in your relationship. And I can go on and on around this. It's a very big topic, but start to look around. Like, are you in control of your health care? Are you in control of the food choices that you're making in your relationship? How sovereign are you? Independent yet connected to the people in your life, to your family. I think all of that impacts how we have erotic expression. Have you done your work around your traumas? Have you done your work around your shadows? Have you done that work? Because if you haven't done that work, then doing sex, doing embodiment is connected to all these things. And so the more that you can connect all the dots and weave it all together, the more sovereign you are and the better relationship you will have with your body, with your sexuality, and if you have partners, with your partners and lovers.
And so I thought it was really interesting that you started, with are you in control of your finances? Because I think two of the biggest taboos to talk about at all are sex and money. right? Those are like the two things that we as Americans have such a hard time talking about. And yet I agree with you. It is so important to know like what is, what is my relationship um to my bank account. I used to say that I have a booty call relationship with money, that sometimes money calls and I come, and sometimes I call and it comes, and sometimes it just, the I let the phone go to voicemail.
I hear you. I hear you. Um, and so I think it's just really important, as you talked about chakras and the connection inside of our body, to really start to weave the inside to the outside. You know, if you're living in any kind of vulnerable fear, it's very difficult to be in a surrendered place with your sexuality.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering, I hear you say that, and I'm curious, like, there are things that you can control around your feelings of safety and things that feel out of control. And I'm curious what kinds of things you might have control over when it comes to safety.
Well, I don't want to be repetitive, but I think all the things that I just mentioned,
Mhm.
um, if you don't think you have control over those things, I would look at that and explore. Like, wow, like I don't feel in control of my money. Well, that's an exploration for you, isn't it?
Mhm.
Why don't you feel? Do you have your own bank account? I mean, a lot of women still don't. Even wealthier women um, who don't work, um, they should still have their own bank account, their own money separate from their partner.
Mhm.
And that may be a conversation with their partner. Do you have a joint account? Do you have a separate account? How much control do you have over your money and where the money goes? Um, how much control do you have over where you live, over your partnerships, your erotic relationships? And if you don't feel like you're being heard, if you don't feel like you are honored, um, that's a wonderful exploration for you. So the question is, well, why not? What are you frightened of? What's holding you back? Can you speak up to power?
Mhm.
And then if you're able to do that, it's much easier to then decide that you're going to self pleasure outside with the moon because you feel safe in your environment. You know it's going to feel good. You can afford the space and the time. It just all connects back.
Right. And I think that's such a great first question. Why not? Um, and all the things that come after that, because as you said, the why not piece is it illuminates where you're at and allows for that expansion into, well, where's the yes? Where are the places that I do feel safe? Where are the places where I do have more control? Where are the places where, maybe not 100%, but I'm certainly moving in the right direction?
Absolutely.
I'm curious, in terms of how this new environment has, I'm imagining, most of your friends, either you move them out with you or they may not be, they may be in a state or two away. And I'm curious, like, how, creating a circle of women around you, if that's been something that you've found challenging, if that's something that you find easy.
I've got a pretty good magnet. So, like right now, people are coming to me.
Uh-huh.
I found some parties for my neighbors already. It's really about, again, and I'm going to go back to the theme of sovereignty. Okay. So I'm self confident about who I am in the world. And so I can go over to the fence and yell over and say, hey, neighbor, I'm your new neighbor. Come say hello and make a connection and say, hey, I would love to have a cocktail party. I don't know anybody. Would you help me? Would you help put out the invitation to the neighbors that I'm hosting an open house? And she said, of course. And 2 days later, I had a house full of humans. And so it's just about, again, being confident enough about what you have to offer to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it comes right back to our sex, right? So it all ties in together. I feel confident being seen in who I am. I feel confident in welcoming people into my home. I can make a good cheese board. You know?
You can.
I can make a dynamite cheese. And, being willing to be seen and not hide. And that's the same thing with women on the table. So we practice sexological body work or the back to the body method. And, women get on the table and sometimes they don't know what to do with their legs because they don't know, can they open their legs? And there are people, the women are saying, I want to open, I want to open, I want to open. Yes, darling, I know you want to open. Your legs are sealed shut. How can you relax? Do you feel safe enough here? Do you feel safe enough? Can you let those legs relax? Can you let your legs open? Can you let your body open? So whether I'm opening socially to my neighbors and inviting them into my home, or I'm opening my legs and my body and my mouth to receive pleasure and touch and explore myself that way, is also an opening and a willingness to be seen. And these are learned skills, Deborah. I don't expect that everybody, I think we're born with these skills. I think we're cultured out of all of this. But there are tools and you can be taught and it can take, but there's no magic pill for living this kind of erotic, sovereign life as a woman. There's no pill to take. It takes immersion. It takes time. You didn't get wherever you are. I'm talking to you right now. You didn't get where you are overnight. It didn't happen overnight. And you're like, sure, well, she can do it. She's Pamela Madsen. Yeah, well, Pamela Madsen is like the same kind of woman you are. I grew up with all the same stories that most women grew up with. And I went through an evolutionary investment in myself, in my sex. And then as I grew and felt more confident in my body, and that's not self-love. Can I just be clear? Being confident in your body does not mean that you're in some great big love fest with yourself. Because I think that's just another job that we set ourselves up as women to fail at. Did a big rant on Facebook and Instagram today about like self-love being yet another job I fail at. Like we're kind of shifting a little bit, Deborah, but like we're many parts. We have many parts of us, but not one thing or the other. It's not like pass or fail. And so when we tell women to go love themselves, it's like, I can love my fingernails today. I can love the work that I'm doing today, but I really don't love some stuff that's happened today.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't love that last night after, I'm at the stage of life where taking care of oneself is very important. And, I did my 15,000 steps and I ate really healthy food and all the things. And then I was relaxing in front of the TV and I started to eat. Mindless eating, self-saboteur eating. I didn't love myself then. I wasn't loving myself. Didn't love myself the next day. I had to forgive myself. But I didn't love unconscious eating behavior that was a saboteur to myself, that was not in my own best interest. And so I think we need to learn as women, it's okay if you don't love yourself all the time.
Well, I think what you just said about forgiving yourself is so important. Because I certainly understand the mindless eating. I've been so good all day long, and then all of a sudden I've got Cheetos in my mouth.
Right.
Or in my case, it's more like tiramisu. But, and then it's sort of this whole, not only am I, doomed because of this one moment, it's like it dooms me backwards and forwards again. So being able to sit with that moment of like, wow, this is where I got to, and I forgive myself for being there. And there is, as you said, there is a part of me that I can still love even in this moment. And so
Absolutely.
coming back and finding where that piece, what is it that I'm able to love in that moment? And the forgiveness piece is so important because I think that in and of itself is an act of love.
Absolutely. And also understanding like where is that coming from? And I believe in understanding your internal parts and your young parts and your different wounded parts and like and what part is speaking right now. What part of you needs attention right now? What are you doing? Like what is your action actually related to? That's a core need that's asking to be met. You know. So, I love that when we talk about sexuality, that we keep going back to bigger and bigger and broader issues. And that we begin to paint a picture for people that having a sovereign erotic life is a symptom of a healthy life.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Being healthy, being sovereign, having an active, sensual, and erotic experience with self and other. I wanted to come back to the couple things. I'm just loving this conversation. But so first of all, you talked about sexological body work. And for anybody who is not familiar, I'd love it if you'd talk a little bit about what that is. Um, and then I'm also curious about, I'd love to wrap back around to self-confidence and how you grew your confidence.
Sure. So sexological body work or somatics or body-based education. I would go so far as to say that they are therapies. But people are very cautious about using that word in relation to this work because it's not licensed in that way. It's licensed as sex education. So in a lot of ways, what we're doing right now is sexological body work. We're educating and we're talking about sex. So that's an aspect of sexological body work as a sex education professional. The other piece is touch. So sexological bodywork professionals work in a touch modality. So at Back to the Body, we call it the Back to the Body method, which stands on the pillars of sexological bodywork. We work on massage tables. Women receive various forms of one-way touch. They get to explore their bodies, understand their bodies in many different ways. From being able to listen to their parts talk and make a body poem, to explore rope and suspension and curious about spanking and never had an orgasm, don't understand arousal. So all of these things can be explored in a professional, safe enough environment. We use the word safe enough and we go back and forth. Like, is it safe? Is it safe? Is it safe? Well, will it disrupt your life? It may. It may change your life. It changed my life. Is that safe? I don't know. But what is true is that sexual boundaries are honored and actually dictated. My practitioner signed a contract with me. And what the contract says is they can keep their clothes on, that it's one-way touch, We don't date clients here. We don't have intimate, erotic, two-way experiences here. We have intimacy here. We have caring, and we have, humanistic love and care. Women experience Epicurean touch. The practitioners who are here, who are somatic sex educators or sexological body workers, have a very large expanse of knowledge. And so if you've had trauma, if you feel armored, if you don't feel safe in your body, this could be for you. If you feel like a sex goddess, but you want to go deeper, you want to be a bigger sex goddess. Like, I know there's more in my body. Well, yeah, we can do that too. We can raise pleasure ceilings with this modality. And, in some ways, especially for people in partnership, it's a beautiful hall pass because you get to go and explore your eroticism in an environment where you're not encroaching on your relationship with your partner. And I think that's really important.
It's very important. I know in my own life, a lot of my erotic exploration, my tantric exploration, was done as a solo journey. So that I had the space without the dynamic of partnership, which is a beautiful thing. And, sometimes it can be a little bit, sometimes it can be more restrictive than expansive. But having that hall pass, as you said, permission to go and explore and learn and expand on my own and then get to bring it back to my partner who gets to see all these transformations and gets to be the recipient of, the work that I've done and the pleasure that I've cultivated and the eroticism that I've discovered. And then I get to say, hey, babe, there's this thing. Would you like to try it?
Yes, exactly that.
And I want to so one of the things that you often talk about is getting to know your own pelvis. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the pelvis and specifically, what gets stored there and how opening up the pelvis is one of the pathways to more pleasure and more eroticism.
What we're really talking about is being comfortable with our bodies. And that's really the root of all of it. What I believe, and this is a belief, this isn't a fact. Okay, it's a belief. My belief is that, well, it's not just my belief. So Chinese culture believe that the pelvic bowl is the cauldron. And so if that's the cauldron, if our pelvic bowl is the cauldron of creativity, if it is the cauldron of life, if it is where we manifest from, your genitals is underneath that. And so living in arousal, living with hot genitals is heating up your cauldron and helps you manifest what you want in your life. And so I live most of my life in arousal. So I can almost always feel my vulva being alive. And that's cultivated. I've cultivated that skill. And that has helped me manifest a lot of what I want in my life, is because if I'm feeling turned on and I'm feeling alive, that I'm more likely to take risks. I'm more likely to make changes, to have adventures, to ask for what I want from a really full embodied space. I hope I'm not talking jargon.
Well, as I'm hearing you say that, it makes me think about what you said earlier about being a magnet and being turned on and being willing to go to the fence and say, hey, neighbor,
Exactly.
and to invite and ask for help and assistance. And I'm imagining that, that when you're not in that place, then it makes it a whole lot harder to go to the fence and ask for help or to stand out. And so it makes perfect sense that as you are more in touch with your genitals, your cauldron, that confidence comes up. And, our genitals are absolutely connected to our throat and to what comes out of our mouths. And so I'm imagining, one of the things we talk a lot about Tantra is using sound and sound being words. And it's like, if you're turned on, are you willing to say the thing? And it's a whole lot easier to say the thing that you really desire when there's energy behind it, when there's heat behind it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I teach this, I teach something like I've named Lotus Lift meditation. And basically it's women meditating in arousal and actually learning how to listen to their internal GPS, their internal guides. Because, we talk about, women often talking about being gaslit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we gaslight ourselves. We don't need the patriarchy to gaslight us. We're always gaslighting ourselves and telling ourselves. We don't listen to our bodies. And mostly I think it's because women have been taught not to trust their bodies. Or we have the entire United States government right now trying to control women's bodies. Well, that message is that we don't have the ability to control our own bodies. We must be regulated. There are no laws on the books for men's bodies. Only women's bodies are regulated. And so the message women get is we can't trust our bodies. We can't trust ourselves. So the work that we do is to connect women back to their pussies, connect them back to their cauldron, connect them back to their internal GPS, and to use arousal as a tool of self-knowledge. And these are things that can be taught. Again, these aren't like pills that you take. These are skills. These are teachable, learnable skills. I have supported hundreds of women into finding their own way home. My program was called Back to the Body, not Back to the Partner. Okay. It's, we often say we're a self school, not a sex school. And because we need to know self, we need to understand all the things that we're gently touching on today in order to live a fully erotic life.
This is kind of an odd question, but I'm curious. You talked about the laws and the way that the government works with the female body. And I'm curious how it might change. How do you think it might change if we have a female president?
Well, I think we'll have freedom. I think we will have somebody who radiates choice, who trusts women to make their own decisions about their lives and their bodies, and not take that away. And I think that if we have a woman president, that she will fight for us. The question is, will women fight for us? Will women actually? I have listened to female sex educators who are pro the things that the Supreme Court has done and some of the, doctrine that's being put forth by the Republican Party in the United States. And they're pro that. And I find it really extraordinary that female sex educators who are teaching women to be empowered are actually supporting women's rights to be taken away from them. And I've never, in my years of being on social media, unless it was somebody who was being really inappropriate towards me, like really trolly, very rare. Very sexually aggressive, that kind of thing. I've never blocked people or unfriended them. I'm doing it routinely now because I can't. I don't want to get into a public debate with somebody, but I get very disappointed when I see women with big female platforms,
right,
supporting taking away women's rights. The choice to have a baby is just as important as the choice not to have a baby. And both of those choices are being taken are at stake right now in this election.
Yeah.
I went through infertility. I made embryos. I did in vitro fertilization. I have 2 magnificent sons in their 30s. If we don't get Harris, there may be people who are not able to have in vitro, are not able to access assisted reproductive technology. It's not just about abortion. It's about reproductive health, reproductive rights, and the freedom to express our sexuality. Because if you think that that's not, because next, it's live and alive right now on social media. We can't write the word sex. We have to do all kinds of weird shit to get our message out because we're censored. So, yeah, I mean, if you're a woman and you're listening to this, what do you stand? Do you trust a woman? Do you trust yourself? Get out and vote. Get friends, get a carpool, go to the assisted living facility and help older people get to the voting booths. Be an activist, because you're being an activist for all women in this country. And if this happens here, it will happen in other countries too.
Thank you. Absolutely. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you, other than get out and vote and bring your friends, if there's one thing you wanted people to get out of this conversation, what might it be? And while you're considering that, I'm going to take a moment and just let people know how they can support the Better Sex podcast. Because a podcast, as good as it is, and as incredible as the conversations are, is not enough. To really have an incredible sexual relationship with yourself, with others, you need support. You need help. And that's why I have the Better Sex Bedroom Breakthrough Session. This is a personalized one-on-one conversation so that we can figure out what's holding you back from sex and satisfying relationships. So please take a moment, check it out, and again, like, subscribe, and comment where you get your podcasts. So Pamela, I'm curious, what do you want people to get out of our conversation?
But sex is evolutionary. It changes and it's connected to all the parts of your life. And by putting your sexuality in the center of your life, that you will grow all the other aspects of your life. And these are all tools that you can learn. And it takes time and some dedication, but the homework is fun.
Absolutely. The homework is amazing. And thank you so much for joining me here today. Where are the best places for people to find you? Well,
I'm not hiding. So people can find me on Instagram at the Pamela Madsen, on Facebook. I'm actually really verified on all those platforms. And I have an upcoming retreat in October in Joshua Tree. And it's limited in size. We have room, I think, for another 6 women, and it's non-residential, and it's a Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday in October. And you can come and learn come and get some of these skills and combine them with what they're doing with you, Deborah. So, sex is an embodied experience. So come and see what is possible. And yes, follow me on social media. Go to backtothebody.org, my website. Sign up for the newsletter. Take the pleasure quiz. Get resources. Have a conversation with a sexologist. Tell your story. Sometimes that can be very healing.
So good. Thank you so much for this conversation, Pamela. It has been such a pleasure. And for those of you listening, follow her on social media, Facebook, Instagram. Check out the newsletter. We're going to have a link to that in the show notes. And highly recommend following her on Facebook, as well as getting to experience her in person. So good.
Lots of free content, people. Lots of free content. So thank you, Deborah. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you for making this happen, for being willing. And for those of you listening, if you want to bring more love and better sex to the world, you know what to do. Subscribe, like, comment. Bye for now.
Thank you.